Secondly, we need to chisel Christlikeness. I want to show you a picture of one of the most famous sculptors in all the world. You've heard the name Michelangelo, and you see on the screen a picture of Michelangelo's Moses. It's in Rome. If you ever get to Rome, I hope you get to see that. And trust me, it's worth it to put in the euros and turn on the lights so it's really well illuminated. You have to put money in a machine in order to get the light on the statue, but it's worth it. Magnificent work. It lives and it breathes. It's just absolutely incredible. Michelangelo was one of the great sculptors in the history of the world. This is something Michelangelo said about sculpting. Every block of stone has a statue inside it, and it is the task of the sculptor to discover it. Never forget, every Christian has Christ inside of him or her. Jesus is there. And what your work is all about is chiseling away everything that doesn't look like Jesus until you get that representation of Christ, until you get that Christ-likeness. So what can you do that will chisel away what doesn't look like Jesus in the lives of the people of your church? You know that if you can get them engaged in the spiritual disciplines, they are likely to look more like Jesus than they do right now. If they are reading their Bible every day, if they are studying the Bible on their own and not just listening to a sermon or a Bible lesson once a week, you know if you can get them in those habits of holiness, they are likely to look more and more like Christ. It gives the Holy Spirit things to work with in the soul of that believer. You know if you get them engaged in ministry, they are likely to look more like Christ. Many people don't understand that was one of the areas of genius of that vast, complicated programming approach to church that Southern Baptists had when everybody had a job. I've been reminded of this all afresh. One of the unusual things that we do is training for ministry inside maximum security prisons. A Southern Baptist who was the warden of Angola State Penitentiary here in Louisiana, the largest maximum security prison in the United States, called us about 21 years ago and said, would you please come inside our prison? We have some men in whose lives God is working. Would you teach them how they could be ministered to the other inmates? Most of them are never going to leave prison. Would you teach them how to be ministers? And we went in and we said, okay, we will do this. We have two provisions. Number one, we're going to do the exact same curriculum we do on our campus. We're going to do the exact same Bachelor of Christian Ministry. So everything we teach here, we will teach there. Greek, Hebrew, church history, theology, and most importantly, the Bible. And we don't change anything for anybody. We're going to teach them to be ministers just like we do everywhere we teach. They said, okay. Second requirement, they have to commit to engage in some form of ministry in the church inside Angola. It may be leading Bible studies, it may be leading worship, it may be starting churches. To date, after 21 years, our guys have started some 24 churches on the cell blocks of Angola. They've had a transforming impact. I was absolutely shocked when I learned 2 years ago, I think it was, our inmate ministry training program in the Angola Penitentiary was the answer to a question on the Jeopardy game show. How in the world did it get there? The effect on that prison has been so profound that now that prison is sending out inmates 2 by 2 to other prisons to teach in other prisons what they learned in Angola. There's that Hebrew word. Wow! When you get people engaged in ministry, it has a transforming effect. And I could go on, but I don't have time. But you have to understand, this is basically what you're doing. You are the Michelangelo in front of a block of granite. You know that Jesus is inside that person. You know the Holy Spirit is at work in their life. However faint and weak it may seem that work to be, Jesus is inside them. So what can you do? What can you do to help them get rid of everything that doesn't look like Jesus, so that the longer they are a part of your congregation, the more is chipped away and the more like Jesus they become? Chisel Christ-likeness.